Welcome to the Growth Xperts Podcast. I'm your host, Derek Colin. In today's episode, we have a very special guest. His name is Kaleb Martin. He is the Managing Director of Investor Relations over at Dakota Venture Group. How are you doing today?
I am doing good. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. So can you share with us a bit about your background, your role, and how it fits into the bigger picture over at a student-run venture capital firm?
Yeah, so as you said earlier, I am a student here at the University of North Dakota. So I stepped into Dakota Venture Group about a year and a half ago as an analyst, and I worked my way all the way up to managing director of investor relations for Dakota Venture Group. So there at Dakota Venture Group, I am in charge of investor relations, obviously in the name, but I'm also in charge of education and fundraising for our firm and for our analysts and associates. So I am teaching each analyst and associate how to properly pitch to investors and pitch to donors or different LP prospects. And we are trying to scale our firm and really be center stage when it comes to student-run venture capital firms in the nation.
Oh, wow. That's cool. How many students do you guys have that are kind of involved with investor relations? Or is it just mainly you, or is there other people you're working with?
Yeah, so we try to get everyone involved, and that's kind of the benefits of the group is that you get involved in everything when it comes to venture capital in the firm. It's not just one thing. And that's the big part about the experiential learning that we offer. So every single student that's in our group is involved, and we have about, I think, 23, 24 members now within our group. We're very selective. We like to choose high candidates that apply. We have a lot of candidates who apply. So last term, I think we had around 40 candidates who applied and we selected 6. So we are very selective, but when we make those selections, we want to pick someone who is maybe not just good at one thing, but is able to apply themselves at everything. So whether that's the investor relations side, whether that's the due diligence side, whether that's just communicating in general throughout the firm and getting work done legally and anything else like that. So we are all involved within investor relations. I kind of just head that sector of the firm, but we want to get everyone involved in everything.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that's really good. Fostering a community where everyone's kind of involved and, it's inclusive. That's really good. It helps people learn, kind of have boots on the ground, if you will.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So what major shifts are you currently seeing in your industry right now?
Yeah, I think it's kind of the industries that we're looking to investing. I mean, we had a Harvest Fund 1, which is kind of a for-profit fund structure that we had a couple years ago. And that fund kind of has seen maybe not so good returns, not expected returns that we thought we were going to see. Because at that time, we thought that the med tech industry, this was going to be this huge booming industry. So we were trying to get into it early. We were pouring all this money into it. And it turns out that we were wrong. It wasn't. And there's things that we've learned from that we're kind of applying right now. And what we learned is the industries that we really had success in. So we have a strong focus on agriculture and energy, UAS, and then automation, software, and AI. Those are the big sectors that we have really kind of learned from experience, seeing what has worked and what hasn't worked. So I think the shifts that we're seeing, especially as a student-run group, is especially here in North Dakota with UAS and technology and agriculture and energy here. That's kind of the shift that we're seeing. There's a huge attention that's going to those sectors and those industries. So we're seeing the shift towards that right now.
That's good. Yeah. So when it comes to UAS, can you explain to the audience, for those who do not know what that is or what it means, and why your investment thesis is shifting into that particular sector?
Yeah, so UAS stands for Unmanned Aircraft Systems, and those are drones. So, you could have those little drones that your child plays with, around the house. But the drones that we're kind of talking about are those big military contracted drones. So these are the drones that are flying over foreign countries, doing surveillance, maybe dropping bombs or whatever it may be. And
Mhm.
Grand Forks is actually so that's where we're located and that's where we're headquartered. But Grand Forks is a nationwide industry leader when it comes to UAS. We have the best of the best UAS programs here and testing sites. So it's kind of an easy access thing for us. There's a lot of people within our community, within our state and local government that is heavily involved into the UAS. So we are seeing kind of that technology booming because UAS is good because now you're not putting people's lives at stake. You're making things a lot easier. You can pilot those aircrafts from kind of just at the site, so you don't have to actually go out and do it. And the thing about UAS too that most people don't know is that UAS adds a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
So have the two pilots that you would have in normal aircraft. They're just kind of in the sight, piloting it from there. But you have a whole bunch of other moving parts that go into that. So it's not just that pilot, and it adds a lot more jobs as well. So we love this industry. Right now we're conducting one due diligence on a UAS drone company right now. We're really excited about it. We're halfway through the due diligence process, so we're not quite sure if we're going to invest yet, but
Yeah.
we are looking deeply into that industry and sector.
Cool. And then for that sector, particular industry, when it comes to UAS, is it more on the defense side? Are these companies that have government contracts, or is it private? Is it public?
Yeah, so every company that we've seen when we go through our screening and due diligence processes have government contracts. So usually those large scale companies that have the highest potential or ROI potential is going to be the government contracting companies.
Okay. Understood. Awesome. Love it. So when it comes to, this trend with UAS and technology and so forth, how has it impacted your business or growth strategy or, overall for Dakota
Yeah,
Venture?
I think, like I said earlier, it kind of gives us that easy access. Us being from Grand Forks, and there's a huge test site in California, and then there's a huge test site here. So we have a lot of local and state leaders that are involved in UAS. I know a couple people who are on the city council here in Grand Forks, and they work for Northrop Grumman, one of the biggest UAS companies in the nation. So there's a huge easy in, to this industry. So a lot of times you have to go on, you got to do your research, you got to find all these industry leaders, talk to them. But for me, it because we're here in Grand Forks, everyone kind of already knows what it is. Everyone is already connected with those kind of people. So I have these contacts already just from knowing people in the community. And it's so easy if I have a question about the industry, if I have a question about where it might be going, if this is a good idea, if this is a bad idea, it's so much easier to have that contact to go there and get that information that I need.
Cool. Yeah. And for students out there that are transferring or moving to, North Dakota or have an entrepreneurial spirit, what could you say to them, from an educational background, from your experience on how they can kind of get involved, lean into the VC world?
Yeah, I would say just apply. Like I said, even though we're from North Dakota, even though we're from Grand Forks, we are the nation's first fully student-run venture capital firm, and we are considered one of the Ivy League of venture capital funds here in the United States for students. We've had colleges like Brown, Notre Dame, even NDSU has consulted us privately about how we set up our fund, how we set up our structure. We're always looking to help people, but it's kind of background that we have that really establishes ourselves. And I would say that, just applying to our group, because it doesn't matter what background you come from. Our Dakota Venture Group is not just maybe entrepreneurs. I'm a finance and political science major. We've had a nutrition major there in the past. We have a lot of aviation majors who help us with that UAS kind of sector. But it's not just entrepreneur majors or students that we're looking for. We're looking for a diversity of students. So we welcome everyone and we welcome anyone. We're going to go through our process, our application process. We're going to see who is the best fit, but definitely don't feel like you're limited just because maybe you're not an entrepreneurship major, or maybe you don't know anything about venture capital. Don't feel like you're limited. Just try it, go for it, and your background is a lot stronger than you think it is.
Awesome. So when it comes to, securing the right LPs and getting the funding that you guys need to deploy capital into these specific projects that you're looking to invest in, how do you do that? Do you train your students on that, on how to negotiate those conversations? How do you navigate it? Do you take them to dinner? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it kind of depends. So obviously we're students first. So we have an LP out in Wisconsin. We're not going to be making the drive out to Wisconsin to do that. So from the start, we are really guiding our students and our members. So just like the way I was taught, we're going to show you how to reach out to these LPs. We're going to teach you, what to say. If they say this, then say this. But at the same time, it's kind of a personality thing. Each person or a group has a different personality, which is awesome. And we want them to use that. We don't want them to follow a rubric or follow a script. That's not what this is. We want you to be yourself. We're going to give you kind of the structure and background that you need to make this pitch, but we want you to be yourself. So when we reach out to these LPs, we'll take them to dinner if they're in town, obviously on us. We'll dine them a little bit. Hopefully they'll give us some money. But what we like to do, honestly, and I think people see this as our biggest weakness, that we're students and don't experience. But from my standpoint, as a fundraising standpoint, I think that's our biggest strength, because when you're talking to these LPs who have a lot of money, very, very successful, these people probably get 50 sales calls or emails within a day. And if they don't, then you're probably talking to the wrong person. So how do you differentiate yourself in these email boxes? And the way that I found works is you highlight that you're a student. These people are very, very successful. They've all had educational backgrounds and they care a lot about students in higher education. If you say that you're a student and you use that as a way in, we find a lot more success and responses in fundraising efforts.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what's exciting? What do you guys got on the table? Any events coming up? And when it comes to, equity play, we'll get into that later. But what events? What's exciting? What's on the table?
Yeah, so there's actually two things that's really, really exciting right now. So the first one, I'll highlight that events. Right now, we are in the midst of planning our 20th year anniversary. So Dakota Venture Group officially has now been operating for 20 years. So we are planning a huge kind of anniversary get together. A lot of our alumni from across the country have gotten word that are coming. We have guys from Florida coming. We have guys from New York coming. So it's going to be really, really exciting, not only as Dakota Venture Group as a whole, but for our current members. We tout our ability for connections and networking. So the ability for our group and our members right now to network with all these successful professionals is going to be super, super exciting. So we are pouring a lot of money and time into this project and this event. We've been planning it for almost a year now. So we have a lot of good speakers that we are talking to right now. And a couple of them are planned already, but we're really excited about that. And from an equity standpoint, what we're doing right now is we are fundraising again for our first fund, the Innovation Fund. And the Innovation Fund in 2006 was a nonprofit structure fund. And there are investments in this fund that generated over a 250% return. So it was a very, very successful fund. And this was actually the fund that kind of put Dakota Venture Group on the map. We were the first fully senior run venture capital fund, and now we are the first to ever make a profit on one of our investments. So we are kind of expanding on that fund right now. We're boots on the ground fundraising. Everyone in the group is raising, including myself. We're trying to get money and we're trying to reinvest money back into this fund. So from an equity standpoint, that's kind of what we're doing right now.
That's pretty cool. And I may have a few opportunities for you, so we'll talk after this.
Awesome.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So what's working well for you guys at Dakota Venture Group and what's been frustrating?
Yeah, I think what's been frustrating is kind of the turnover. So how the group works is, you apply, you go through a rigorous application process, and then you get admitted to the group. But once you graduate, that's kind of when you get dismissed from the group. Obviously, you're on to bigger and better things after that. So, especially in my position, and we have 5 managing directors, that turnover can be kind of hard. There's a lot of information and a lot of communication that's lost when you transition from one managing director to another managing director, or from one analyst to another analyst. So that's probably the hardest part, I think. The communication is really key. And that's kind of what my position is. My position is trying to streamline that communication, trying to make sure that when students come into this group for the first time, they're equipped with all the tools and knowledge that they can have to be successful in the role. So the challenging part probably is that student turnover. But the thing that's really, really exciting, the thing that's really, really working well, I think, is our education. I mean, I come from a background that when I came to college here, I didn't even know that private equity or venture capital was a thing. And
Yeah.
I talked to this one guy in class and he's like, yeah, I'm in Dakota Venture Group. We do this, this, and this. I'm like, what? Never heard of that in my life. So, I applied, I took a shot at it, and I go on there day one. We sit in the first meeting and I probably understood about 15% of the words that they were saying. I didn't understand a single thing coming out of their mouth. And now, fast forward a year and a half, look at me, I'm a managing director and I'm the one leading these meetings. So from an education standpoint, obviously we help you, obviously we guide you, but you got to dive in there right away. And it's really exciting to see how fast you can learn something. So I'm really excited about that. And I really think that's something that we do really, really well here at Dakota Venture Group.
No, that's really cool because, it's all about making the right connections. It sounds like you connected with another student and he was like, hey, I got a plug for you. No, that's really cool because, I mean, some cases you hear people just going to college and they don't really meet those, their peers where you can connect from an entrepreneurial standpoint and kind of have something on the side while you're still getting your education, but something very lucrative, which is in VC world. And I like that, man. That's why you're here, to share your story. When it comes to having, the right funding and the fund, the LPs, etc., is it important for you guys as a VC firm, from what I've heard in the grapevine, to have that fund readily available so you can deploy capital quicker, to meet competition or etc.? Does that make sense? So
Yeah,
the question is, do you have funds available to, deploy capital when an opportunity comes your way before somebody else takes the pie?
yeah. So right now we do have funds in our accounts. So, like I said, we're screening companies and we're doing due diligence processes. So, kind of once we decide that this is the company, we have the funds in order to execute that transaction. But
Mhm.
that's the way we kind of like it right now. And what's really good about our process, especially for these students in a nonprofit structure, once that money hits our account, we can write a check right there right now. So I think it's really, really important because, when you're going to these investors or you're going to these donors, you say, hey, we want X amount of money. We want to invest in this company. And then you can't say then, in 3 years, this is going to be ready to invest in. We want to be able to go in there and say, we want to invest in this company. This is what they're doing right now. And that's why right now, that's the time to do it. And with your money,
Yeah.
so it is 100%. It is extremely important to be able to sign a check ready right away once you get that money. And I can't say that right now. That obviously I can't say how much we have. If we find a company that we really really like,
Yeah.
we can check right.
Awesome. That's really cool. So let's just say I sign up, I fill out my application, right? And I'm accepted and I go through the process, but I'm like, guys, I got background and experience in institutional investing and I'm ready to hit the ground running. How do I start making money? Is it a profit share amongst you guys, or do I have to bring something to the table, bring a deal to the table in order to get the deployment of the funds? Would I have access to those funds? Is it a shared pool, of funds that people can, pull from and say this project is approved? How does that work, if you can talk about it?
Yeah. So what's really interesting is that none of our students are paid, and the benefit of not being paid and us being a nonprofit is that there's no liability. So if we write a check for a company and within a year that company files for dissolution, goes bankrupt, no liability on me, no liability on our students. The investors can't come down and be like, get this guy out of the group. He made a bad call. He made a bad decision. So
Yeah.
we're paid fully in experience and connections. And that does seem kind of odd or bad, maybe, but again, we don't have the liability. And that's what's important, because I think that's where the learning really comes from. When there's no liability of losing your job, no liability of anyone being mad at you and trying to get you fired, you really immerse yourself in the student experiential learning experience. It's okay to make mistakes because there's no liability. But when we go through our application process, which is a very long, it's probably a 1.5 to 2 month long application process. It takes a little bit of a while. So we recruit
Yeah.
really, really early on. And then what we have right away is we have our open house. So you come there, you network, and this is kind of our educational piece. So we tell you what Dakota Venture Group is. We mentioned that it's not paid, but there's no liability. So that's where we educate them on that. You network with the people, you network with the people in the group, you network with us, the managing directors, and then after that, then we do our interview process. So out of all the applicants, we select the select few of applicants that we want to interview. And a
Yeah.
lot of those applicants are going to come from the open house. Matching a face to the resume is really, really more beneficial than just looking over the camera. So we want those interviews and then we interview them. And then after that, then if you get past the interview stage, then we have a project stage. So kind of depends on the person. So it's randomized right now. So we have either a mock due diligence. So we're going to give you a company that we're actually invested in, and we're going to tell you to write a little screening report on them and see what they can do, see if they can actually put their mind to it and if they're going to be a good fit. Or we have maybe some demo marketing or any other side project that we have, just to see creativity and critical thinking. Are you going to be able to slide into this role and benefit right away? So once you get that process, then we select off of your interview and then off of your project who we want to move forward with. So we select, say, this 6 people. Then this 6 people go on and they'll take a test. So they have a week to study for a test. It's not a tricky test. We tell them everything that they need to know. It's about the background of DVG, what we do, who we're invested in, who our investors are. And once they pass that test, then they're fully in the group. So we educate them throughout every step of that process, kind of little bits and pieces of Dakota Venture Group. And then the reason for that test at the end, which is, seems kind of odd for a student organization here on campus to give a test. And I don't think anyone else here does that. But the reason to do that is for that educational standpoint. When you're going to an investor, instead of saying, oh, I don't know if we're invested in them or not, now they know, they've passed the test, they've studied the background of DVG, and it really equips them with a lot of knowledge to do the job well. So like, yeah, we're not paid. We have no liability, which is great, but that's not a secret. So we make sure to educate our candidates very well on that.
Gotcha. Yeah, maybe I got confused on that. Sorry about that. Yeah, so when you said 250% return on a profit, I thought you guys were for profit. But if you operate as a nonprofit, I would assume when you get that type of return, where does the money go? Does it go back into the organization?
Yeah, so for that fund specifically, it was a nonprofit, but we do have a for-profit fund that's still open right now. But for that 250% return, that was into a healthcare company and senior living company. So right now we still hold our shares in that. We have liquidated before, so we could liquidate those shares. And what we did is we liquidated those shares, and then we immediately after we did that, we invested into another company. So that's kind of where the money goes into. So we're not taking the money out and paying ourselves with it. When we liquidate our shares with those companies, we're liquidating to reinvest right away. So we do have money on hand to write a check right now, but also say this investment is going to be a little bit more than we have in our accounts. Then what we would do is we would liquidate some of those shares, and then we'd use that to invest in the company.
Oh yeah, reallocate. Awesome. Well, it sounds like you're moving the needle. You're doing great, and you're providing those students and people that do get onboarded after that 2 to 3 month process with very good education. And it's the learning experience, it's something they can attach to their resume. And when it comes to the VC world and what you guys do, and kudos to you, man.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Kaleb Martin, Managing Director of Investor Relations over at Dakota Venture Group. And if you guys want to check out the website, if you want to apply, you want to look into Dakota Venture Group, that's dakotaventuregroup.com, dakotaventuregroup.com. Kaleb is also listed on LinkedIn if you want to look up his profile. Thank you so much for joining us on the Growth Xperts Podcast. It's been a pleasure, Kaleb.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.